okay? So this is what I'm going to do. You guys are going to be home tomorrow during the review, so I'm going to give you a copy of this to take home. And if you want to get up at 8 and watch the review live, you can, or you can watch it recorded, okay? But I'll talk about what to expect on the test, that sort of thing, okay? And then we'll go over this together. You bring this back on Thursday, and it's filled out, we'll put a big 5 on it and give you 5 out of 5 for it. It's kind of like getting a head start on the test, 5 free points right there, just for filling out the review. How about that? Cool? But that'll be for tomorrow, okay? We're going to finish the notes today. Now, the other half of the class, I actually got a little bit further. I got a little bit further yesterday than 7th hour. I get distracted, okay? Because the teacher, when you cover something, you know, multiple times a day, you get tired of hearing yourself say the same thing. So, you know, get off track a little bit. You might have noticed that in the last video, okay? So anyhow, let me do a quick review with you guys on, you know, we looked at different forms of government. I did dictatorships, democracy yesterday or last session. And then we're looking at forms of government based on levels. Where does the power lie? Okay, so when you think of unitaries, big national units, the big unit, okay? So all power is held up there, and then it just kind of, it's administered down below there, okay? And then the federalism, okay, was the one that we use, okay? And federalism is something you guys always need to remember. Okay, that's what we use, okay? And so to define federalism, power is divided or shared between national, state, and local, okay? So in the last lecture, I just kind of was wrapping up this, and what you have is a situation where some powers are granted to each level. Well, actually, the Constitution grants powers to the national government. The ones that are not mentioned, like education and so forth, or firefighting, libraries, that sort of stuff, it's not mentioned in here. So these, it's reserved to these down here, which is state and local government. So that could be USD 259, USD 266. Those are local governments that deal with education. You have city councils, you have county commissioners, you have mayors, you have governors of states, and they administer government at a state and local level, okay? This is a tug of war. I mean, like the Civil War was fought over slavery, right? But really the underlying issue was that the states, the southern states, were saying, we want to be able to own human beings as property, okay? And the national government saying, well, we have something called human rights, and we're going to change. We're going to make sure that everybody has human rights. And so this was an argument about who gets to make the decision. Okay, so for instance, real quick, okay, the drinking age laws are all 50 states have the same law. It's not a national drinking age law, okay? The tobacco laws that they just passed is a national law, okay? But they're both restricting something the government doesn't want us to do, okay, as young people, all right? One's national, one's state. The one with the tobacco, I mean, as a person that, you know, studies the Constitution, likes the Constitution, thinks it works well, that's a decision should be left for the states, not the national government, in my opinion, okay? It's just like the death penalty, okay? Some states have it, some states don't, okay? And if you want to live in a state that has more freedom than other states, then you can move to those states. You know what I mean? People think differently in different parts of the country, okay? And that's the great thing about federalism, is that you retain some control over your government, okay? This is usually a one-size-fits-all. Everybody has to do the exact same thing, okay? And I don't really like that personally, okay? But everybody can have their opinion. Now, one of the great things about the national government, they have supremacy. They are stronger. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And what it does is it protects your rights and my rights. So if you're living in a state like Alabama or South Carolina, and they want to have things like Jim Crow laws where they want to treat certain people differently, they can't do that, okay? Because the national government and the Bill of Rights protects all of us. It's like an umbrella that protects our civil rights, okay? That's really important and a good part of federalism. Because, guys, I will tend to be pretty hard on the national government. As a, it's just how I think. I don't like big government, okay? But there are some really vital roles that the national government plays. And we'll get into it. We'll do a whole chapter on federalism, okay? So the third type here is confederal. And this, guys, this is what we tried the first time around. When we broke away from Britain, okay? So in 1775, the revolution started, okay? In 1776, we wrote the Declaration of Independence. The war lasts until 1783, the American Revolution, okay? In 1781, they wrote this. This is the Articles of Confederation, okay? And it didn't really work well for us, okay? You see the box here? The state and local government is much larger than the national government. So this shows you where the power lies, right? Which some people would say, yeah, that's great, because where we live, we get to make all the decisions, all the important decisions, okay? But for a country as big as ours, you kind of need that big umbrella at the top, okay? So for us, what happened was the national government, with the Articles of Confederation, it literally had 13 people in it. 13 people were in the national government. There was no executive branch. There was no judicial branch, just one legislature. One person from each state. Okay? So what happens when there's a dispute between Virginia and Delaware? Or a dispute between Massachusetts and New York? What you're going to have is 13 men in a room that are going to start taking sides against each other. Okay? And what really happened was all this infighting at the national government between the states. And so they couldn't tax. They couldn't raise money. This national government had very little power. Okay? And it just didn't work. So in 1787, they wrote the new Constitution that gave us federalism rather than confederal system. Does that make sense? So that's kind of history with us. Now let's talk about this. Okay, it kind of does work for Canada. Okay, Canada has a system where they have, I think they have 6 provinces. Like you might have heard of these, like Quebec, Saskatchewan, okay? But not very many people live in these places, right? I mean, Canada's a small population. So they have these 6, don't quote me on that, I think it's 6 provinces. In Quebec, do you know what the language is, what they speak in Quebec? They speak French, okay? The rest of the provinces speak English, all right? So if the national government in Canada said, well, everybody's going to have to speak English, the people in Quebec would want to revolt. They get to decide what they speak in their own province, okay? Now, they do have a national healthcare system in Canada. So the only way they could do that is if the 6 regional governments said, yes, we agree with that. Okay, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do that. All right. But a really good example of a confederal system today is the European Union. You've all heard of the European Union, I think, right? Back in 1999, my wife and I were fortunate enough to go to Europe, and I think we went to like 5 or 6 different countries, and this is before the euro. Okay, so they had, if you went to Britain, you got the pound. That never changed. You go to Italy, you get the lira. You go to Germany, you get the German mark. Okay, not sure what the Austrians were using. but the Italians use the lira, the French use the franc. Okay, and so you would have to exchange your currency at each one of those places to use the local money. Okay, today they all use euros, except for Britain. Britain kept the pound, and then last year, guys, 2 years ago, they voted in Britain to leave the European Union. Okay, this is what's dangerous about the European Union for these European countries, is that this national government for the European Union are not elected leaders. They're appointed from each country, okay? And now they're starting to make more and more decisions for the people that live in these countries, but they're not elected. It kind of be like the United Nations. You guys heard of the United Nations, right? There's 200 people. We have an ambassador to the UN. Every country has one ambassador to the UN, and then they select one of them to be the Secretary General. It'd be like the UN trying to make laws over you and I. We don't get to elect those people. We don't know who they are. Why would they have any authority or sovereignty over us? And this is why Britain chose to leave the European Union, okay? Because they were ordering them to do all kinds of things. And so they're out, okay? But the main reason for the European Union is to compete. If you have 15 countries, small countries, put them together, they can compete against the United States and China economically. Okay, and that was the goal for the European Union. All right. So, different forms of government, where does the power lie? All right, and that's the third way. So you got unitary, all at the national, federal that you share between, and then of course confederal, where the power lies with the state and local government. Cool? Pretty easy to understand? Okay, now, this is going to get a little bit complicated, okay? Last couple slides here. Okay, powers within levels of government. All right, so the first system we're going to talk about is the presidential system. This is what we use. Most countries do not use what we use, okay? Most countries use a parliamentary system, so that's going to be the second. You got presidential system, and you got parliamentary systems, okay? Now, you guys, I taught you about the 3 branches of government, okay? In our presidential system, these 2 branches, legislative and executive, are separate and independent, okay? There's what we use is separation of powers and checks and balances. Okay, so the president is chosen independently from the legislature. In other words, in our system, who elects the president? People through is that at the top? C-SPAN's 2012 Electoral College. Okay. The people elect the college elects the president, okay? Oh, by the way, tomorrow night, MSNBC, the first presidential debate, okay? Trump versus Biden. Are you excited? I'm excited. I just can't wait to see it, okay? All right, so, smell that? I smell extra credit. Okay, so I'll come up with something. I'll put it on Canvas. Now, I realize some people have jobs, some people have sports, practices, stuff like that. So I won't make it due like Wednesday, but probably Thursday. Okay, so you can go back and watch it if you can't watch it live. Like say you're watching Major League playoffs that start tomorrow as well. My game starts at 2 o'clock. It's terrible. White Sox are going out to Oakland to play. Okay. All right. So, in other words, guys, the legislative branch doesn't elect the president in our system. Okay. The people do. In a parliamentary system that's on the next slide, the legislature elects the prime minister. Okay. So members of one branch can't be members of the other. Okay, Joe Biden right now is a sitting member of the United States Senate. He represents the state of Delaware. Okay, he's been in Congress for 47 years. Actually, he's not in the Senate anymore because he was vice president, right? Yeah, so he's not in the Senate anymore. Yeah, he used to be. Okay, let me go back to Obama. Okay, when Obama was elected president, he was a sitting senator of what state? And you guys know what state Obama was from? Hawaii. No, he did live there growing up.
Pennsylvania.
Good guess, but no. What?
New Jersey.
No.
Philadelphia.
Illinois. Yeah. Illinois. All right. So when he became president, he had to resign from the Senate. You can't be in both in our system. Okay. In parliamentary systems, you have to be in both. You can't be the prime minister unless you're a member of parliament. Okay. So there's a big difference there. Okay. So there's that separation, right? You can't be in both. You can't hold on to that Senate seat. You're the president. Okay. All right. So we have this. We use a presidential system. Okay. Now, in our system, they set it up where they would be kind of co-equal branches of government, and checks and balances would keep one from becoming too powerful, okay? But I do want to talk about that a little bit because of these three branches, and I know you guys aren't experts on government yet, okay? But if you had to pick one of these three, the legislative, the executive, or the judicial, which one do you think is the most powerful? Judicial? Legislative? Can I get an executive? I got a judicial over here. Anybody else? Opinion? Okay. Well, I think the founders wanted the legislative to be the most powerful because that's the closest to the people, right? We the people, yes? But over time, these people don't like to make tough decisions. You know why? Because they want to get reelected. And for the House of Representatives, how many members are there in the United States House of Representatives? Remember, we did this, right?
Yeah.
We did this.
You did it with the other class.
Yeah, okay, we're going to do it. Okay. How many? Okay, it's 4:35. You ready?
Yeah.
How many members are there in the United States House of Representatives? Yeah. All right, so they are close to the people. All right, now they don't like to make tough decisions because if they make like a tough decision that's going to cause pain, you know what I mean? Like they decide that we're spending too much money and they need to cut some spending somewhere, that's going to cause pain for people. And then their opponent in the next election is going to blame them for that pain, right? And then they're not going to get reelected. So they never want to cause pain for anybody, never want to make these really difficult decisions. Okay, so they give up that power to this person, to the executive. Okay, this is why the executive branch, our presidents, have become more and more powerful over time. Okay, because the legislative branch has abdicated the responsibility. Okay, they've given that up, which is sad. Okay, because they don't have spines. They're spineless. Snakes. Then you have this branch over here. Now, there's only 9 of them, right? Are they elected? No, we're watching this process, right? Appointed by the president, and must be approved by which body? Not Congress, but the Senate. Okay? And how long are their terms? For life. And they get to determine whether their laws are constitutional or their actions are constitutional or unconstitutional, right? So if I had to say, I would agree this is the most powerful branch. Okay. This should be, but this has become. And this is the weakest. Even though they control the money. They control the purse, right? Okay, now this is a big difference between parliamentary and presidential systems, okay? And that is the president is both chief executive. He's the head of the executive branch, oversees the day-to-day affairs of the country, enforces the law, carries out the law, and is the leader, the ceremonial head of state. So if Martians came down to the United States and they said, take me to your leader, who would you take them to? To President Trump, okay? He's the head of state. So like when Pope John Paul passed away, the President of the United States, representing the United States as our head of state, went to the funeral. Does that make sense? And so did some of the former presidents, as former heads of state. Okay? So that's the presidential system. Okay? Separate branches, can't be in both. The president is chosen by the people, not by the legislature. So when we move to the next one, which is our last slide, is parliamentary system. Now this gets really confusing, guys, because they like to use different terms for their leaders. Okay? Most commonly, we see prime minister. But there are other terms as well. Okay? These people are elected not by the people, but by the parliament. Okay? So, let me show you this. In order to be the prime minister, the PM, you must be an MP. Not military police. A member of parliament. Okay? In order to be the prime minister, you have to be a member of this body. This is the parliament in Britain. Okay? Now, most countries use parliamentary systems. Okay? France, Italy, Russia, Britain, of course, Denmark, Norway. They almost all of them use parliamentary systems. Okay? We are different. Okay? So, because they choose one of their own to be the leader, okay? In a lot of these countries, they do have terms like 4 years, okay? But they can call for new elections at any time, okay? If there is a, if they lose support in the parliament, they can call for a new government to be formed, okay? In fact, if the prime minister themselves can say, all right, you guys don't have confidence in me, let's hold a new election. Who you got that's going to do better than I'm doing? Let's go. Let's have an election at any time. Okay. And so it's a little more bumpy because, 4 years, Trump gets in 4 years, he's got 4 years. And I know they tried to remove him, they tried to impeach him and stuff like that. But we all knew the outcome of that before it began, which was he wasn't going to be removed from office. Okay. So in this case, it can happen. And it can happen quite often. So if you live in a turbulent country like Israel, which uses a parliamentary system, okay, you could see multiple leaders. Okay. In France, there's been periods where you would see like 6 or 7 different premiers over a 4-year period. Okay. In France, they call them premiers. In Germany, they call them chancellors. The leader, the person that runs the day-to-day affairs in Germany is Chancellor Angela Merkel. Okay. But they also have a different head of state. See, the head of state is different here. So in Germany, they use president. which makes it confusing. So Germany has a chancellor, that's the chief executive, and a president that's the head of state. Doesn't have a lot of power, the president. The prime minister has the power. Okay? They have a queen and a prime minister. Queen is the head of state. Follow me? Ceremonial nature, and the day-to-day affairs goes with the prime minister. Okay? Who is in Britain today is a guy named Boris Johnson. Is the prime minister. Okay? He's got blonde, like really blonde hair. It's really messy. Boris Johnson. He's an interesting character. Okay? And by the way, Britain, I heard on the radio this morning, is going back into lockdown. You guys remember what that was like? When they shut everything down and they had stay-at-home orders? They're doing that again. Okay. You want to do that again? You think we will? 30 states, we see rising cases.
I think they're gonna put the economy over it.
The flu. Yeah, what if Joe Biden gets elected? You know what I mean? I don't know what's going to happen with that, okay? Because he seems a lot more, right? Biden seems a lot more like cautious about it, yes? Or at least that's what he says, okay? When you're president, it's different because you're in charge, okay? And you know the impact that's going to have on people, right? So maybe not. I don't know, okay? It's a little bit scary, okay? So this could be really confusing, okay? But I think for the purposes of what we're doing, let's focus on Britain, not Germany. So you know the Queen, and then the chief executive is the prime minister, okay? Good? In our system, it's the same person, all right? Now, one of the great things about parliamentary systems is because you are a member of parliament, you answer to parliament. When our presidents are elected, they don't really answer to the legislative branch. So our system is a lot more scripted, like Hollywood. Okay, our presidents have people that pick out what they wear, people that write their speeches, and they give speeches whenever they want. They don't have to do press conferences. Okay, although Trump does quite a few press conferences where he talks to the media, and that goes back and forth. That's always entertaining. Okay, I think he gave one yesterday. I didn't get to watch it, but with this, the prime minister is part of parliament, so he's in the body with them all the time. Boris Johnson's there with them, and so they can they hit it, you know, and you got to be quick on your feet. Okay, so I'm going to pull up. We got a few minutes. We're done with notes. I'm going to pull up some funny moments from the British Parliament, okay, the House of Commons. And this is quite entertaining.
Are we sure? Because
I'll give you a little Boris Johnson to start with.
If you manage a team, you have to track. Money.com is a platform to track everything we do. We use it for all our projects: marketing, product development, HR, creative production.
If the Prime Minister does to the country what he's done to his party in the past 24 hours, I think a lot of people have a great deal to fear from his incompetence, his vacillation, and his refusal to publish known facts that are known to him about the effects of a no-deal Brexit.
Mr. Speaker, I really don't see how, with a straight face, the right honourable gentleman can accuse anybody of being unwilling to stand up to scrutiny when he will not agree to submit his surrender bill to the verdict of the people in an election. He's frightened. And Mr. Speaker, he makes a contrast between this government and his own proposals. The contrast could not be clearer. He thinks We think that the friends of this country are to be found in Paris and in Berlin and in the White House, and he thinks that they're in the Kremlin and in Tehran and in Caracas. And I think he's Caracas, Mr. Speaker. We're putting 20,000 police on the street. We're upgrading we have 20 new hospital upgrades. We are growing the economy. He, by contrast, would put a £300 billion tax on every company in the country. He wants a tax on homes, and he's calling incessantly for a general strike. The Shadow Education Secretary says that their economic policy is, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, by your leave, shit or bust. I say it's both.
Okay, so this is, I mean, you can go look up all kinds of funny stuff. And guys, there is a pub literally attached to this House of Commons. So you can walk off the floor and grab a beer in between sessions or before the session starts, and then come out onto the floor. So you can, okay, on this side, this is the minority parties. Okay, and they usually have multiple parties. We're a two-party system. Usually these parliamentary systems will have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different parties represented. We usually just have 2. I mean, in the Senate, we have 2 independents, okay? In the House, we have 1 independent out of 435, okay? The others are all Republicans and Democrats, okay? But the minority party over here, which today in Britain is the Liberal Party and the Workers' Party, okay? And then this is the Conservative Party that Boris Johnson is the Prime Minister, okay? And so they both sit on either side and they're yelling. You can see this. There's people booing and laughing and making all this noise, okay? But this is the head of the minority parties. This is, you know, so if this was a Republican, this would be a Democrat, okay? And they get to directly question the Prime Minister, okay? That doesn't happen in our system. Once every year, the president goes and gives the State of the Union address, usually in late January, okay? And you have Congress, all the Congress people there, 435 from the House, 100 from the Senator, plus guests. They're all packed into the House chamber, and the president gives a speech. And when he says something the parties like, they stand up and clap. And when they say something he doesn't like, they don't boo, they just don't clap. Okay, and the speech is all written. He's got it on a teleprompter and all that. All of our presidents do that. Okay, but this, I mean, they got to respond. You got to be quick on your feet. And humor, you know, being helps. You know, it helps win an argument like this. Okay, so it's a lot more interesting than our system. Okay, it's more exciting. It's messy. Okay, but it's the way it works. Okay.
What's the stake? Also, what are all the books? Yeah, where are the books dudes?
Yeah,
And what's the stake?
Oh gosh, that's something like must be like the Queen's thing. And then this guy up here like runs it. Okay, he's like the president, and he just, you know, he'll throw the gavel down. You guys be quiet. Okay, I'll show you here. I'll show you a funny one. House of Commons. This guy ran it for a long time. He kind of discusses it in this one. So let me put here.
Is that Commissioner for Standards into cash for questions will be ready on Monday or Tuesday.
Mr. Speaker, recently a single mother with small children came to see me in Sheffield. She had with her
The first point of recapitalisation was to save banks that would otherwise have collapsed. And we not only saved the world, saved the banks, and saved the banks and led the way. We not only saved the banks.
This sucks. How do you get to be that guy? It's like, and you say weird, like, it's just like the most monotone way of like the
Total spending will continue to rise, and it will be a 0% rise in 2013-14. In 2011-12 and 12-13, it will continue to.
order. The Prime Minister's answer must be heard.
This guy's good.
I think that answer gets 0%.
Now, I know how much he likes personalising politics, and I know, of course, I know how he hates punch and judy politics. When it comes to real policy, when it comes to discussing the long-term future of this country, he is not even when it comes to real policy, when it comes to discussing the long-term future of this country, he is not even.
I wish the Shadow Chancellor would occasionally shut up and listen to the
Okay. All right, so review tomorrow, okay? Tune in live or make sure you watch the video.